Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra. If you have never been here before, I talk true crime stories, so if you like true crime, hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the murder for hire case of Kendra K. Hatcher. But in this video I'm going to do things a little bit different. Usually I like to talk about the victim first, but in this video I'm going to talk about everything from the very beginning. Starting with a man named Roberto Paniagua, who went by the nickname Ricky. Ricky was a 38-year-old California native, recently divorced doctor who specialized in dermatology. He graduated from Stanford University School of Medicine in Stanford, California in 2010. He was slim, had black short hair that he liked to spike upwards. A lot of people said that he looked a lot like the actor Ross who played on the show Friends. He was very polite, thoughtful, and a man of a few words. In 2011, he moved to Dallas, Texas to finish his residency in dermatology at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, where later he would work as an assistant professor. Moving to a new city and being in the final stages of his divorce, Ricky didn't really know many people outside of his workplace. So in order to meet new people, especially women, Ricky turned to the dating app Tinder, where he would eventually meet a woman named Brenda Delgado in August 2012. Brenda was a 31-year-old woman born in Mexico. She was very petite and she had almond-colored eyes and beautiful thick auburn brown hair to her shoulders. When Brenda was very young, her and her 4 siblings, along with their parents, moved from Mexico to Dallas, Texas to start a better life. She grew up in a very modest home in Pleasant Grove, southeast of Dallas. She was known to be an excellent student. All of her teachers absolutely loved her, and even at a young age, she was determined to make something great out of her life. She graduated from Skyline High School in year 2000, and she worked 2 jobs, one at a floral shop and one being a waitress. Brenda continued to live with her family straight out of high school. She did plan to enroll into college to study to be in the dental field, but because her and her parents could not afford college financially, she ended up working as a dental assistant and had a second job whitening teeth at a day spa in North Park Center, which was a very popular high-end mall in North Dallas. Right after swiping right on Tinder, Ricky and Brenda soon go on their first date at the American Airlines Center to attend a Jennifer Lopez concert. Now, Ricky was handsome. He was a doctor. He had many women admiring him and wanting his attention. But Brenda wasn't as successful as he was or accomplished as he was, so something about Brenda caught his attention. He too came from a struggling background, so maybe Brenda's drive and determination is what made him attracted to her, because she did have that drive to want to make something out of her life. Whatever it was, they ended up making their relationship official within a few days after meeting. Only 3 months after dating, Ricky ends up having Brenda move in with him in his urban flat across from Central Expressway near downtown. They were considered inseparable. Everyone said that they had a very loving relationship. You could tell that they enjoyed each other's company. In June 2013, just a year after Brenda and Ricky started dating, Brenda finds out that she's pregnant. She ends up discussing this pregnancy with Ricky, and they both decide that it's just not a good time for them to have a baby. So Brenda ends up terminating the pregnancy. Neither Ricky or Brenda ended up telling any friends or family about this pregnancy. Police later in her notes app would find that she expressed depression and sadness over this decision and even vowed to herself that her and Ricky would end up having a baby sometime in the future. In fall that same year, Brenda finally enrolls into Sanford Brown University to study to be a dental hygienist. Her first day would later be explained by a fellow student who recalls everyone in the class having to stand up and introduce themselves. When it was Brenda's turn, she stood up and she talked mostly about her boyfriend Ricky instead of herself or her family like everyone else did. The student looks back at this time as it was kind of weird that she shared only stuff about her boyfriend instead of herself or family, because it was supposed to be an introduction about herself. Brenda and Ricky got along really, really great. They even discussed marriage and plans for kids in the future. In early 2014, Ricky ends up going to Mexico with Brenda to meet her relatives. During this time, he even gives Brenda a promise ring, but then in the following July, after 2.5 years of being together, Brenda ends up going to class crying, visibly upset, and she tells a classmate that Ricky abruptly broke up with her and told her to move out. It's now been 4 months since their breakup, and Brenda's not taking this breakup any easier even after all these months. Ricky, on the other hand, seems to be having the time of his life. He has even enrolled himself into a salsa class to take lessons at a local studio. After going a few times, Ricky walked into the studio and sees Brenda. He doesn't think anything of it. He thinks this is a coincidence, and he's even happy to see Brenda. This salsa class was a group type of class. The women would dance with the men, and they would rotate partners. As the class went on, eventually Brenda and Ricky would be paired to dance together, and that's when their relationship started to rekindle. Their feelings for each other just all got brought back up, and they decided to give their relationship another try. But this time they wouldn't move right back in with each other right away. Brenda soon rented out a 1-bedroom apartment downtown, about a half a mile away from where Ricky lived. Ricky at this point was helping her with expenses, and she was even added on to his cell phone plan. Plans to get married and start a future seemed like a possibility for Ricky again, but the more that Ricky spent time thinking about future plans and Brenda being a part of it, the more doubts that he had. So again, Ricky ends up breaking things off with Brenda in February 2015 after only being together again for 4 months. But they still stayed in contact with each other via text just to see how each other were doing. Ricky would even run into her multiple times during the next few months, while he was running errands, while he was out on dates. Remember, Brenda during this time had access to all of Ricky's things, his location, his text messages, his emails. Everything he was doing, she was able to see. So that's when she learned that Ricky would be soon going on a date with a woman from his job. She tracked his location and ended up popping up casually at the restaurant while Ricky and his date were leaving. Ricky thought this was a coincidence, just as he did when he saw Brenda at the salsa class. At this time, Brenda also learns that Ricky and this new woman had plans to go to Denver for his birthday. She didn't say anything to Ricky, she just kind of observed from a distance. Maybe reading these messages between Ricky and this new woman, maybe Brenda didn't seem like it was going anywhere. Maybe she didn't feel like this woman was a threat to her. She probably thought maybe if she's patient and when this relationship fails, that Ricky would be coming right back to her. Remember, she thinks Ricky's still in love with her. If Brenda didn't think this new relationship was anything special, she was right, because this relationship didn't end up going anywhere and Ricky was right back to single. So what does Ricky do when he's single? He reactivates his Tinder account. He reactivates his Tinder account with a profile description saying, "Living out my childhood dream as a physician, very happy and in a great place in my life." He ends up changing his interests to enjoy running, exploring places new to me, and opening the car door for my date. Ricky's profile picture and his About Me section caught the attention of a woman named Kendra K. Hatcher, who instantly swiped right when she saw it. Kendra Hatcher was a 35-year-old pediatric dentist born on February 3, 1980 in Springfield, Illinois. Her mother's name was Bonnie and her father's name was Reagan. She was one of 5 siblings. She was very beautiful with perfectly white teeth, high cheekbones, and beautiful green eyes. Her looks weren't the only thing that she had going for herself, though. She was very accomplished in life. She was independent, successful, and just a loving person. In high school, she was very athletic. She was captain of her cheerleading team and also on her volleyball team. She was very liked by everyone, same in college, where she graduated from DePaul University, where her major was Spanish and her minor was biochemistry. She also graduated from the University of Kentucky College of Dentistry. As an adult, she was a member of the Kappa Alpha Foundation, which online looks like it's a fraternity, a foundation proud to provide their members with funding opportunities so they can embrace their ambition and reach their fullest potential, just change the world. She loved traveling, shopping, spending time with family, especially her 5 nieces and nephews. She was very active. She was heavily involved in her community and in her church. She hosted Bible study once a week, and she even traveled to Ecuador and Spain during Christmas to offer free dental work for children. Kendra, too, was married in college, but when her marriage ended up not working out, she decided to move to Dallas, Texas in 2010. She quickly began working as a pediatric dentist at Smile Zone Dentistry, and she rented out a luxurious high-rise apartment at Gables Park 17 off Cedar Springs Road. This apartment complex was beautiful. It had a sea salt infinity pool, it had a full-on fitness studio, and 1 to 3 bedroom apartments, ranging from $1,800 to $3,000 a month. It was so nice that this complex even had penthouses that rented out for $9,500 a month, so it was pretty fancy and luxurious. After Kendra and Ricky swiped right, they began to message each other and quickly decided to meet. They met May 24th for dinner at a place called the Cozy Kitchen in Uptown. Kendra dressed casual for this occasion. She wore a light pink sweatshirt with the saying "I'm with Dreamy" on it, with a pair of jeans. Ricky says that their values match and their interests were in sync. They were pretty much perfect for each other. So much so that the relationship turned into a serious one. The following month after meeting, in June, Ricky messages Brenda and lets him know that he's in a new relationship and it's going well. Brenda seemed like she was happy for him, didn't seem like she was upset, and made it clear that even though he was in a new relationship, she still wanted to remain friends. During the next few months, Kendra and Ricky would enjoy dinners at nice restaurants, they took expensive trips, and of course Kendra was quick to show off her new man on her social media page. She wanted everyone to see her new man and who she was in love with. Her Facebook page was not private, it was set to public, so everyone and anyone can see what she was posting. Pictures of Ricky and her hugging, kissing, smiling, just having a blast flooded Kendra's timeline. They too ended up talking about marriage very quickly, even starting a wedding fund and plans for Kendra to meet Ricky's family in San Francisco. But Kendra's family and friends weren't the only ones watching her love blossom all throughout Facebook. Brenda, still having access to all of Ricky's things, already knew about this relationship. Ricky had never even told Brenda Kendra's name or what she looked like, and nor did Brenda even ask. So Ricky had no idea that Brenda was even watching his every move. Her curiosity would end up turning into jealousy, and her jealousy would end up turning into an obsession. Deep down, Brenda was broken. Seeing Ricky in a new, what seemed happy relationship just started to really bother her. I mean, she spent 3 years with this man. She's gotten pregnant with him. She's wearing a promise ring by him. He's met her family, vice versa. So it's really starting to bother her. Who was clearly a wonderful person who had her life together, who Brenda could never compete with or amount to. She started to see the difference of how Ricky treated Kendra. Just in the first month of them dating compared to the 3 years that Ricky and her had been together. Ricky had taken Kendra to California and also a resort outside of Austin. She was seeing pictures all over Kendra's Facebook page with captions of how happy she was. She was reading comments written by people expressing how happy they were for them. Brenda started taking screenshots off of Kendra's profile. One of these pictures was the picture that they had taken when Kendra was wearing the "I Am Dreamy" sweatshirt on their first date, and also the other photo was when they were on a romantic date. She began to look back at these screenshots and started comparing herself to Kendra's beauty. She knew this relationship was turning into something long-term, and it was starting to worry her. Due to Brenda still being on Ricky's phone plan, she was able to not only track him, but also track Kendra's movements as well. She was able to find out where Kendra worked, where she lived, her daily routine, and when Ricky and Kendra's locations would be together, it would eat at her little by little every single time. One night, Brenda went out to dinner with a friend named Roberto Menendez. Roberto recalls after they went to dinner, Brenda asked him if he could take her to the Gabliss Park 17 apartments where Kendra lives, so she could visit a friend. When they arrived, he remembers them parking outside of the apartment complex, and Brenda looked anxious as if she was looking for someone. Another incident, Brenda went out for drinks with her male cousin Moses, and she brought along a baseball bat, telling Moses if he would threaten Kendra and scare her, she would pay his child support or buy him a car. He declined Brenda's crazy offer, thinking that she was just drunk and wasn't being serious. Also around this time, Brenda offered her friend Jennifer Escobar to move into her home with her because Jennifer and her boyfriend were having problems at the time. Jennifer accepted and moved in with Brenda in early August, but Jennifer had barely moved in when she realized that all Brenda talked about was Ricky and Kendra's relationship. Jennifer became so annoyed with Brenda only ever talking about the couple that she started to avoid coming straight home after work. Brenda was quick to offer Jennifer drugs or a new car if she would help set out revenge on Ricky and Kendra. She told Jennifer that she wanted to use the baseball bat to knock Ricky into a coma. She also expressed how she wanted to beat Kendra to death or kill her by grabbing her from behind, stabbing her in the chest with a drug-infused hypodermic needle. Jennifer had moved in early August and moved out by mid-August, so she wasn't there for any more than 2 weeks. While Jennifer was staying at Brenda's house still, she would have a friend named Cortez come over with her 6-year-old son to come and use the pool in Brenda's apartment complex. And that's how Brenda would meet a woman named Crystal. Crystal was a 23-year-old mom struggling financially, working 2 jobs, living with her grandmother and her son in South Dallas. She grew up in a poor household and in a not-so-good neighborhood. So when she met Brenda, she looked up to Brenda and even admired her. They began to stay in contact with each other even after Jennifer moved out, and they even started to hang out. Brenda would take her out to dinner and buy her things. So what's a girl to do when she meets a friend who has money when she doesn't? She listens to Brenda's thoughts and frustrations when it comes to her ex and his new girlfriend, when no one else seemed to want to listen. Brenda got comfortable with Crystal within a 1-month period after meeting, and one day told her, "I'm going to eliminate Kendra, I can't deal with it anymore." She then offers Crystal $500 to help her carry out this kill. Crystal, being in a financial bind, she accepts Brenda's offer. They begin to track all of Kendra's movements, following her around all Dallas, Texas, and even watching her with night vision binoculars that Brenda had purchased. After watching her for a while and getting to know her daily movements, they ended up deciding the best way to kill Kendra would be to shoot her. Brenda then asks Crystal if she knew anyone who they can hire to complete this mission of killing Kendra. Crystal, coming from a rundown neighborhood, starts to think of some people. They one day drop by Crystal's mom's house, and a neighbor that Crystal knew had a friend over named Christopher Love. Christopher Love was a 31-year-old man, father of 3. He was tall, he was covered in tattoos, and he was known to be a local small-time marijuana drug dealer. His criminal history of being convicted of aggravated assault, aggravated robbery, and burglary of a residence made him the perfect fit for their plan. At the end of the night, Crystal and Brenda head up to Christopher's home, and they all hang out on his balcony. Brenda concocts a story about having connections in the drug cartel, and after getting comfortable with Christopher, she eventually offers him a deal of $3,000 in a combination of cash and drugs if he would help get rid of Kendra. He quickly took advantage of this opportunity because he needed the money to start his own prostitution ring. Late August, Ricky and Kendra went to San Francisco. It was now their 3rd trip to California just in this summer. When they arrived back home, they started planning a trip to Cancun for Memorial Day and planned on going to Illinois so Ricky could meet Kendra's relatives, and so that they can attend the fall festival. Around this time, Ricky texts Brenda to wish her good luck on an exam that she was having, and also letting her know that starting on August 31st, he would be removing her from his phone plan. He let her know that he was offered a position at a medical practice outside of Sacramento in Roseville, California, and that he would be moving in October. This was when Brenda realizes that she would be out of Ricky's life completely. This is 1,700 miles away, and Kendra would probably be moving with him since she knows about their plans of possibly getting married. This conversation puts Brenda in a full-on panic. She starts to put her plan in motion because the opportunity would be soon missed. She graduates from Sanford Brown University on August 26th, and after that she decides that Kendra needed to be gone. She decided the day that Kendra needed to be gone would be September 2nd. And the reason she picked that date is because going through his messages, she realized that they made a plan to go to Cancun on September 3rd. September 2nd comes along and Brenda borrows her friend's BMW. The BMW ends up having problems, so she took it to a friend named Jose Ortiz, who owned a repair shop. Jose then offers his Jeep as a loaner car while he works on the BMW. Crystal ends up driving this Jeep, and she ends up dropping Brenda off at a local library where Brenda meets a classmate to study. Crystal then goes and picks up Christopher at his apartment, and they both drive to Kendra's job. They sit outside watching Kendra's white Toyota Camry. After a few hours, Crystal realizes what time it was, and she had to go pick up her son from school. She then drops Christopher off at his home, picks up her son, drops her son off with her grandmother, then goes back and picks up Christopher. The two proceed to go back to Kendra's workplace and realizes that Kendra's still working. But soon after they arrived, Kendra ends up ending her shift and walking out to her car. She gets in and she heads home. Crystal was right on Kendra's tail, following her through traffic, when she unexpectedly lost sight of Kendra's vehicle. Assuming Kendra was heading home, Crystal decided that she would just go to Kendra's home and wait for her in the parking garage. Kendra made a quick stop at a friend's house to pick up a waterproof camera for her trip to Cancun. Kendra's friend wasn't home at the time when Kendra went to pick up the camera. She was on a trip of her own. So Kendra leaves a note for her friend saying thank you and that she loves her and that she hopes that she had a great trip. After this stop, she finally heads home where Ricky is awaiting in her apartment. While this is all going on, Brenda's classmate that she met at the library drops Brenda off at a Chili's to meet the friend Jose who is working on the car. Crystal drives the Jeep in the parking garage while Christopher is laying down in the back seat to avoid being seen by anyone. They park and they wait until they see Kendra arrive. While they're waiting, Crystal turns around and asks Christopher, "How much are you getting paid for this?" He says, "It's none of your business." Kendra ends up pulling into the parking garage, and it's now go time. Kendra puts her car in park as Christopher exits the Jeep and starts to approach Kendra's vehicle. Just as Kendra's about to step out and shut her door, Christopher raises a .42 caliber Smith & Wesson to her head. Kendra screams so loud that another resident in the parking garage hears her scream and later describes the sound being more animal-like instead of human. Christopher then pulls the trigger, killing Kendra execution style as she drops to the ground facing up. To make it look like a robbery had gone bad, Christopher grabs Kendra's tan coach purse, the camera that she had picked up, and heads back to where Crystal was parked. Crystal then pulls away while passing Kendra laying on the cold garage floor, while surveillance camera catches her exiting the parking garage. Christopher then tells Crystal if she were to ever snitch, her and her 6-year-old son would be next. Around 9 p.m., Brenda's now at Jose's home. She calls Crystal to confirm that the task has been completed. When Crystal confirms, Brenda tells her to pick her up so they can switch the Jeep back to the BMW. Crystal states later that when she gave Brenda the purse, she seemed thrilled and threw it over her shoulder with pride and proudness. I'm not sure how Kendra's body was found or who had called it in, but Kendra's murder was starting to make headlines everywhere. Everyone knew that she had been murdered. Ricky started growing concerned that Kendra wasn't responding to his text messages. In his head, he even had the thought, is Kendra okay? Is she even alive? Later then finds out that she had been murdered through a lobby employee who worked at Kendra's apartments. Kendra's brother Neil was in California visiting at the time when he got the call around 10:30 p.m. He said he did not sleep at all that night. Within hours of everyone finding out what had happened to Kendra, her coworkers gathered outside of her apartment complex right by the parking garage entrance. They had flowers, candles, and posters with her picture on it to show their love and respect for the beautiful dentist. Ricky was soon interviewed and asked if he knew anyone who would want to harm Kendra. He said that he could not think of anyone and had no idea who would want to do this to her. So, of course, Brenda wasn't mentioned in this interview at all. Ricky stayed in contact with Brenda before and after the murder. He even contacted Brenda the night of the murder, letting her know what had happened to his girlfriend. She seemed to be very saddened by this and even offered her help if he needed anything or if he needed groceries. Her plan seemed to be working. Her love of her life is now needing comfort during this time. She can be there for him, and she finally is back into his life. So she thought. The only lead that police had was that grainy surveillance video of the woman driving the Jeep leaving the parking garage. So police decide to release this footage to the public in hopes that somebody can identify the woman driving or the Jeep. Jose Ortiz sees this footage and was very alarmed. He immediately called Brenda asking her what was going on. She explained that Crystal had the Jeep the entire day and that she had nothing to do with it. She even went to the extent of saying, I think Crystal has a drug problem. Maybe she was in the parking garage and something happened. Maybe something went wrong. Jose says he's scared to drive the Jeep and that he would possibly be pulled over. So when he says this, Brenda suggests, hey, why don't you paint the Jeep a different color and don't tell anyone that we had this conversation. After Jose shared this information with some family and friends, they advised him to go straight to police so that he wouldn't be in trouble for this at all. He listens to them and calls lead investigator Eric Barnes and tells him about Crystal and Brenda. Detective Barnes ends up getting a hold of Ricky, letting him know what he had found out. Ricky said he too had seen the video of the Jeep and the woman driving. He said for a second he thought it could have been Brenda, but he wasn't really sure. He then says, I'm getting really scared because Brenda's coming by later with groceries. Barnes then contacts Brenda where she's at the local library studying again. He sends officers over there to pick her up and takes her back to the homicide division interrogation room to be questioned. When Barnes enters the room, Brenda notices that he's wearing a Christian bracelet that says I am second, which many Christians will wear this to let other Christians know that Jesus Christ comes first in their lives. Brenda tells him that she too is a believer, but Barnes doesn't acknowledge this statement at all. He quickly lets her know that he's investigating the murder investigation of Kendra Hatcher. She seemed confused and didn't know what he was talking about. She responds with, and how did my name get brought up? She denied any involvement and continues to say that she loaned Crystal the Jeep. Brenda was questioned for more than 2 hours. She downplayed hers and Ricky's relationship, saying it wasn't all that serious and that she wasn't upset that they had broken up. And she was very stern when telling Barnes that she didn't even know what his girlfriend's name was or what she looked like. She was then asked where she was the night of the murder, and she quickly, and I mean quickly, pulls out a receipt from the Chili's that she was at with Jose that night, proving there was no way that she could have been involved. While Brenda's being interviewed, Crystal is brought into at the same time to be questioned, but Brenda, of course, doesn't know this. Detective Barnes then steps out of the interrogation room with Brenda, and he goes in the room with Crystal. Crystal then quickly confesses to the murder of Kendra. Her story changes multiple times. One of the stories was a man named Lamar forcing her at gunpoint to take her to the apartment so he could rob Kendra. And then her story changed to Brenda paid Lamar to rob Kendra. She claimed she had no idea he was going to shoot anyone. Barnes then goes back in the room with Brenda, and he starts the whole, I know what it's like to not be able to have what you want. I know jealousy can get the best of you sometimes. I know how it feels, blah, blah, blah. So he tries to do that whole thing to make her feel bad and seem like he can relate, but Brenda doesn't say anything. She doesn't confess to the murder. He ended up having no choice but to let her go, so she was soon released from the interrogation room to be booked into the Dallas County Jail for an unpaid traffic ticket. She quickly paid this fine and then was released. Crystal, for confessing, was booked on capital murder charges. 2 days later, police get a hold of Crystal's phone records and learn that she had been texting a man named Christopher Love in the days leading up to Kendra's murder. They search his vehicle and they find the murder weapon that was used in the killing. He then was arrested as well. They went looking for Brenda right away, but she had already fled to Mexico and was already staying with relatives. Brenda held citizenship in both the US and in Mexico. She was then added on to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive list. They were offering $100,000 for her capture. Brenda's mom, Maria, said that the police had it all wrong. She could not fathom Brenda coming up with such a plan to commit any crime, let alone a murder. She goes on to say she is beautiful and a very Christian person. Brenda has never been in trouble for anything, and she's never shown any signs of mental illness. Ricky, too, believed she had nothing to do with Kendra's murder. He was baffled. He had no idea that Brenda was even obsessed with him. He said that she was pretty, personable, and someone easy to talk to. He just could not believe the entire thing. He started to look back at all those times that he coincidentally ran into Brenda, and it started to all make sense to him now. Kendra Hatcher's funeral was held on September 12, 2015, and she was buried at the Farmington Cemetery in Illinois. U.S. police started working with the Mexican police to try to arrest Brenda, but Mexican law forbids her to be extradited to another country that would seek the death penalty for her crime. Dallas District Attorney's Office vowed that they would not ask the jury to seek the death penalty in Brenda's case. After 6 months, Brenda was finally arrested in a north central Mexican city. She was returned to the U.S. back to Dallas October 6, 2016. So they end up offering Crystal a plea deal. A 35-year sentence with the possibility of being paroled in 15 years. In exchange of her testimony against Brenda. Crystal agreed and took that deal. She then confessed the true story of what happened. When asked why she was deciding to confess now, she said that her mother raised her to be better than that, and her mother was very disappointed in her. Her mother at the time was fighting kidney disease and would later pass away of this same disease in November 2017. When asked why she accepted to be a part of this plan with Brenda and accept the $500, she looked at Barnes with a blank stare and said, "I was broke and had a son to support." Crystal then goes on to say that she admired Brenda. She seemed to have her life together. She dressed nice. She drove a Lexus and even wore MAC makeup. She had 2 leather couches in her home and 2 big flat screen TVs. She said Brenda seemed like she would be a good friend. First to go to trial was Christopher Love in October 2018. Just after 2 hours of deliberation, jury voted to sentence him to death by lethal injection for his involvement and because he executed the murder. Because Crystal took the plea deal, she did not have to go to trial, so Brenda Delgado's trial started next in June 2019. During her trial, many witnesses took the stand on behalf of Kendra. A former classmate of Kendra described her as being the most generous, giving friend, saying you could call her at 3 a.m. and she would not hesitate to answer. Her laugh was contagious, high-pitched, and full of joy. Crystal took the stand to testify against Brenda, telling everyone how they planned not only to hurt Kendra, but to kill her. She also said that Brenda wanted to get rid of Kendra Hatcher because she was envious of her. Prosecutors then show a pair of binoculars that Brenda and Crystal used to spy on Kendra while she was at her workplace. Jennifer Escobar also took the stand against Brenda, saying that Brenda was obsessed with her ex. She even inquired to multiple people to attack Ricky, Kendra, or both of them. During Brenda's trial, she did not look towards Kendra's family, didn't look towards her own family the whole entire time. She didn't even look at the witnesses on the stand. But when Ricky took the stand, she couldn't keep her eyes off of him. Maybe thinking this is the last time that she would see him, so maybe that's why she stared him down the whole time. But The only time that Ricky looked at her was when he was asked to identify her. They locked eyes for a split second before Ricky turns away. Ricky also testified about the times that he had ran into her, thinking that it was random. Closing arguments took place and emotional victim statements were read by Kendra's mother, Bonnie, and Kendra's sister. Bonnie starts with, quote, "You, Brenda Delgado, have earned a spot on this earth behind cold steel bars for the rest of your miserable life. And if justice could have handed you a death sentence, make no mistake, I would have been front and center." She ended her statement with, "You could never measure up to the woman that my daughter Kendra Hatcher was," end quote. Kendra's sister expressed how what she did impacted so many people. She ended her statement with, quote, "Brenda, you are disgusting. Who the hell do you think you are? I hope you rot in hell," end quote. Jury then went to deliberate for only 18 minutes before finding Brenda guilty of capital murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and she was escorted out by court bailiffs. While she was being taken back by bailiffs, she looked in the crowd as if she was looking for someone, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, or maybe Ricky. Maybe she wanted to get one last look at him before she wouldn't see him for the rest of her life. Ricky is a hard guy to follow, especially not having social media. It's kind of hard to find anything about his social life or his personal life, but I do know that he did move to California and he lives in the Roseville, Sacramento area, and he still is a dermatologist and works at the Roseville Medical Center with Kaiser Permanente. I am not sure if he is married or if he has any children. This case is like your everyday case. Like, this happens so often, it's just crazy. That's all that I have on the Kendra K. Hatcher case. Have you guys ever heard of this story? Let me know in the comments. I'm trying to make videos that are kind of not so popular. Maybe they were at one time, but now they're not. Let me know in the comments. And a quick announcement, I do have a website where I make custom t-shirts. So I am doing my first website drop this Friday, June 11th at 2 p.m. if you want to tune in and snag what you can. My website is wakeprayvinyl.com, and I will put that in the description below. If you guys like this video and it was easy to follow along, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!